Oh, Mom, can I use your computer for homework?
For homework, right?
Yeah, definitely. Homework only.
100 years ago, I remember that assignment. You know, why write a new one when there's a perfectly good paper already written by your brother?
Isn't that cheating?
I can't believe that you had a party!
Greg, you told me it was a couple of kids. A band rehearsal.
Wait, Susan, you knew about this?
Yes, I knew.
What, you told Mom? I knew they had a party!
I recently watched the second film in one of my favorite movie series called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Now, there are countless reasons as to why me and so many other people love these films, but today I'd like to focus on one aspect of the second film, one recurring issue, I suppose, that Greg seems to have throughout the film. That is, until the end, when he finally makes a 180 in terms of his decisions in regards to, like I said, his main issue. So if any of that is of interest to you, then stay tuned. This channel exists to hopefully help you by me relaying my observations and hopefully useful lessons to you. The basic plot of the film has to do with Greg and his relationship with his brother Rodrick, all the major ups and downs that they have throughout the film. Now, to anyone that watched my first video on the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie, this will be a bit of an update in terms of Greg and how he's doing with the whole caring what people think issue. It seems that Greg still does care what people think to an extent that isn't healthy, seen by him in one of the first scenes in the movie, looking around to make sure no one saw Rowley's magic wand, and more specifically, that no one would see a magic trick that Rowley wanted to do, I guess. But there is grace to be given for Greg and for anyone, for no one becomes a pro at practicing a new attitude or it has a new philosophy cemented overnight. But I guess let the scene be an inspiration, and a realistic one at that. If you find yourself dabbling with old philosophies and attitudes you tried to get away from, don't see it as a complete fail or failure of your goal. It's one step back and two steps forward. Just get up and try again. And be encouraged that you noticed that you were falling back into old attitudes. There's a scene where Greg asks his mom if he can use her laptop for a school assignment, to which she very clearly and emphatically, is that the word? Well, I'm using it anyway, emphatically states that he can only use it for homework. He can use the laptop, but only for homework. And Greg agrees and goes on to do exactly the opposite. For shame, Greg. For shame. Later on in the film, there's a party that Rodrick is throwing, and he essentially is forced to let Greg participate in it, to which Greg invites Rowley over. Now, during the party, Rowley says that we should go upstairs, and he was right. Greg responds to him saying, "We have an opportunity to see things that no one in our grade has ever seen before." Though that is true, you have to gauge to what extent it's worth it. It says in Proverbs 22, "The prudent see danger and take cover, but the simple keep going and suffer the consequences." And as we know in the movie, this exactly is how this whole thing plays out. Greg would have been better off not participating in the party at all to begin with. But with that said, it reminds me of another verse that God will cause it all to work for the greater good of those who love him and are called according to his purposes. Even though Greg did end up, participating in this degeneracy and then lying about it to his mom and to an extent to Rodrick, once you have messed up, just do whatever you can to fix it, and Greg did go on to do that. On top of Greg lying to his mom about the party, he also lied to Rowley in a way.
Your parents are so cool to let you have this party! Yeah, really cool. And they can never know.
And Greg, instead of just saying, "Oh, well, that's not exactly the case," he just said, yeah, you never know. Greg also lied about General Grant, saying, "Oh yeah, we have no idea." Well, he didn't say this explicitly, but he made it clear that his story was that, they have no idea what happened with the action the figurine, let me be clear. And then obviously they lied about the bathroom door as well, Greg and Rodrick both. Greg even lied about the type of snacks that he and Rowley were going to be eating at their sleepover later on in the movie. And yet again lied about the type of film that they'd be watching, even faking out his mom with the old switcheroo 1-2 by saying, "Yeah, we're gonna watch Andy's Magic Cushion. Let's start with that," and then switched it around. Switcheroo 1-2, that is a thing, by the way. I didn't just make it up. I'm just kidding. I did. Greg went on later to make a deal with his mom regarding not punishing Rodrick for the party, but again, it was based on a lie. He said there was a party, but then he's like, oh, well, actually, it was a band rehearsal. It wasn't actually a party. But Rodrick went on to see this as some form of loyalty, and yeah, you could argue it is, but it's not a good kind if it's based on lying. So they went on to have a bit of, I guess, a closer connection with each other throughout the film at this point. And Rodrick went on to show Greg all these different tips of how to live an easy life, which, let me just quickly say, desiring an easy life is not a noble desire. But in any case, Greg was complicit with the total degeneracy that Rodrick was telling him about. He's like, yeah, I got this. He bought the board game that his mom was getting the mom bucks from at the thrift store. And so he's basically going to be essentially robbing his mom. Robbing their parents. The dad is the one that works, but they're going to be robbing them by having all this fake money. And like I said, Greg was complicit in the lie, the fib there, and then went on to purposefully use a terrible rag on the car and stuff like that. And he even plagiarized Rodrick's paper for an assignment, which did blow up in his face. There's a good lesson that, and Jordan Peterson talks about this. It's like, whether it's lying or trying to get ahead by this little cheat way or something in life, you never get away with it. You never do. You might temporarily get ahead, but it's I mentioned earlier, 1 step back, 2 steps forward. It's a 1 step forward, 5 steps back, because it will come back to bite you. You reap what you sow, as the word says. And that's, Christian or not, you can acknowledge. I mean, people that aren't Christian, they call it karma. It is a thing. You do reap what you sow. So perhaps the main issue Greg had in this film isn't entirely apparent. For Greg lied to some people in many examples. He cheated on assignments in another, and he partied with randos in another. His main issue that I see is connecting with his friends or people in his life, mostly by degeneracy. Like I said, lying to his mom about the laptop, to lying to both his parents on Rodrick's behalf, quote unquote, and cheating on a paper at school with Rodrick's help. Greg really doesn't have a ton of notable virtuous collaborative acts within this film. That is, until, as I mentioned, the near end of the film. All the lies stemmed from one night, one partaking in degeneracy, straight up defying their parents' explicit and clear rules.
Oh. And don't have anybody over this weekend. Got it?
And this is a good lesson. It's not only not incumbent upon you to partake in any action with someone because you happen to be close to them or they're your friend or XYZ, let alone because you're related to them. But in fact, it's your responsibility not to partake in the action you know to be wrong, regardless of who's taking part in it. It may even be your place to correct them. Whoever, like for example, Rodrick's throwing the party, Greg he probably wouldn't have heard him. I mean, he would have literally heard him, obviously, but he probably wouldn't have heeded his words at all. But could have said, it's like, well, they specifically told us not to do this, bro. Just to name that example. But yeah, it may be, like with your friends or family members, what have you, it may be your place to correct them, or at least point out that they're not making a good decision. But as I said, Greg redeemed himself near the end of the film. Instead of lying, cheating, or simply acting degenerate or otherwise rebellious with, or quote unquote, for any of his friends, he acted virtuously by making an agreement with his mom. If she lets Rodrick play the show, then Greg, will do the embarrassing magic act. This action was taken based upon the better ambitions of self-sacrifice, not self-seeking motives like with basically the rest of the film. Seems like Greg actually genuinely cared about Rodrick's misfortune and therefore pleaded with his mom to let him play in the show. He couldn't have known that it would definitely make things good between him and Rodrick again, but that did happen as a byproduct of Greg's virtuous decision. Oftentimes, we get the thing we desire, or that we did desire initially, when our desires and incentives change to something more virtuous. Like I said, Greg couldn't have known that Rodrick would completely forgive him and what have you, but he knew. It's like, well, I do owe him to some extent, so I'm going to do this anyway. And that's what I found to be useful for me, is don't have many expectations in terms of what you'll receive. I mean, I'd say a good life in general is more so defined by what you give, not what you receive. So love people, do what's right, don't expect anything in return, but that makes it all the more exciting if you do get something in return. It's like, I didn't expect anything, so this is just a bonus. So the point being, again, that Greg's main issue of connecting with people by degenerate means was mostly an internal issue with him. Once he fixed his heart and began looking out for the interests of not just himself, but for others, the path became clear. So the main takeaway I'd like to get at is, if you mostly connect with your friends by degenerate means, then change that, even today. Don't get it twisted. Fun in and of itself is not the issue, even though that's the straw man argument that a lot of people would watch this and point to. Oh, you just don't like fun, bro. It's like, no. In fact, within the film is a great example of mostly harmless, mostly fun, but how do you say this, bro? Within the film is a great example of a mostly harmless but fun endeavor. Rodrick and Greg ate some junk food at the store, even stating that their parents would, quote unquote, kill them if they found out. Now, you'd never catch me recommending to a kid to directly defy your parents' specific requests or orders. But like I said, this is a good example of what I'd say is rather harmless, at least when compared to cheating on assignments, partying with degenerates, lying to your parents' faces, and stuff like it. But with all that said, nothing comes close to connecting with someone in a virtuous way, like what Greg did for Rodrick near the end of the film. There is nuance with this idea of when certain fun becomes degenerate. There's no perfect rule that I know of for the matter, so do let me know your thoughts down below. But this video is by no means to recommend ending any friendships. It's mostly to help you be the best friend that you can be, so don't take this as going out and correcting everyone per se or what have you. I mean, I'm not going to give too much advice in that regard. You can do what you want, but this is mostly for you. It's like, yeah, if you are mostly being degenerate with your friends, change that. You be the virtuous one. Like I said, in terms of ending anything or gaining a new friend or what have you, that decision is always yours. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Now, I would add to that as a Christian myself, there's use in interacting with people that maybe don't have quite the same goals or aspirations as you and don't care as much about improving their character or being virtuous, because hopefully by your example they can follow, get onto the same path. And of course there's things you can learn from them, but the main things, just make sure to not be too, if at all, influenced by people that aren't seeking as great of a goal that you have in being virtuous, being more like God, stuff like that. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Whether this is referring to the Holy Spirit or just a really good friend, I'm not entirely sure, but point remains, don't make the goal having a ton of friends. Make it having good friends, even just a few, or even just the one, and more specifically, being a good friend yourself. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Absolutely true. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. I'd be skeptical of someone that only ever compliments you and never gives you any kind of, oh yeah, I might disagree, or maybe this could be better, or hey, let's do this better, or gives you even constructive criticism / encouragement. Again, the wounds of a friend can be trusted, is another translation. But an enemy, one that doesn't very much care for your well-being or that you improve at all, just that you continue to show them some love or what have you, they're only ever going to tell you things you want to hear. So again, I'd be skeptical of those people. So again, be a good person, be a good friend, connect with people by virtuous, not degenerate means. Don't mistake any form as fun. Don't mistake any form of fun as degenerate, but also don't mischaracterize degeneracy as merely fun. For the presence or absence of degeneracy could literally mean life or death in some cases. And as someone seeking to live virtuously, which I'm confident you are if you're watching this video, let alone this far into it, it says in the word that doing wickedness is like sport to a fool, and so is wisdom to a person of understanding. We should all have the goal of wisdom and good fellowship being more fun to us than simply doing basic rebellious acts. There's a couple honorable mentions or scenes from the movie that I thought were important, or dishonorable mentions, I should say. Greg's invisible Chirag joke was, you could argue funny. And yeah, I mean, it certainly was, but it doesn't, because something's funny doesn't justify it. It was straight up bullying, to pretend that he wasn't there. And yeah, definitely Chirag was being a jerk too, but it's always a better option to bluntly and competently, to the best of your ability, put someone in their place or call them out, as opposed to becoming a bully yourself. Well, what is that saying, that quote by Marcus Aurelius, the best revenge is to not be like your enemy? Two wrongs don't make a right. It's these basic ideas, but when it comes to actually applying them, we're like, no, he deserved it. Chirag was being mean, so then be mean back to him. It's like, whoa. You're sat here saying Chirag was mean and that's wrong, so now you're gonna... No, revenge is not for you to take. Leave room for the Lord. He'll take revenge. A saying that I've kind of adopted is that if you've been wronged, don't become bitter, become better. In the scene with Greg and his talking to his mom, he let it slip that there was a party that Rodrick and him had partaken in, but then he took it back to an extent and told, like I said, a half lie, half truth. This put his mom between a rock and a hard place because of her strong desire for her sons to connect. She then withheld info from her husband on the matter, which was wrong, obviously. The point being, lies can compound, but so can virtue. Consider that when making decisions. And consider the position you put someone else in with your decisions. At one point in the movie, Mr. Heffley makes it clear to Rodrick that he's not a big fan of Bill. In fact, he just says straight up, yeah, oh, okay, Bill's in your band. That's not really helping your case because Bill is kind of a jerk. Now, unfortunately, in today's culture, we would be offended at the fact that, oh, he said jerk, he insulted him. It's like, well, no. He absolutely thought that was true. And what do you know? Mr. Heffley is Frank. I believe his name is Frank Heffley, yeah. He turned out to be exactly right about Bill. He was exactly right, even though Rodrick probably didn't want to hear it initially. The advice of fathers is oftentimes overlooked, very unfortunately, and to the detriment of all of society. And oftentimes, a father's advice is exactly what you need. So respect your parents, and that includes your father. Like I mentioned a few times in the video, I have another video talking about Greg, his main issue within the first movie, which, again, like I mentioned, he has a little bit of it left over in this film, but in any case, watch the first video to get more of an idea of what I'm talking about there. And also watch my most previous video. It talks a little bit about a scene from Endgame, talks about some 21 Pilots songs, some Creed, some Mr. Brightside, stuff like that. There's a corresponding message beneath it all that I know is very important, and some people need to hear it, so do check it out. With that, I sincerely thank you for watching, and is that the right way to say it? Well, yeah, not that it's not true. I sincerely hope that this helps you in some way, so apply it today and wherever applicable. And again, I sincerely thank you for watching. Tune in for more videos coming soon, watch the previous ones, and I'll see you in the next one. Remember to treat others the way that you want to be treated, and to love God and love your neighbor, and therefore you will be your best self. One last time, thank you for watching, and as always, it's an honor.